is so embedded in our lives that we barely even notice it. But beyond the hype, what's actually happening with AI today? In AI Behind the Hype, we explore how artificial intelligence is transforming business, industries, and human-machine interaction.
Welcome everyone. So I'm Diego Pizzocaro, the CEO of H-Farm AI. So I do basically a very quick roundup of news in the last months, actually January and February, basically because we skipped January. Again, these are like very selected news because every day there are at least 4 new releases. So pardon me if it's very opinionated as a summary. Just let me remind you, for the ones who are new, that we have entered the reasoning AI era. So basically now AIs don't just answer straight away your question, your prompt, but they actually reason before giving you an answer. And this is really important, in specific this year, because at the beginning of the year, you will see something big happened in terms of reasoning AIs. Now, the result of this, actually the theory behind this is that the researchers discovered a new scaling law that is called compute time. And basically, before this, everyone was focusing on the pre-training phase of an AI model, a specific large language model, where you let the servers run a long time to create the model, and then you release it. And then the model actually spends the same amount of power, let's say of computational power, to reply to every question you give. Now, with this paradigm, everything changes because you can spend more time thinking about a question or a prompt of a user. And the result is that the more computational power that the model, let's say, uses to reply and to think before actually spitting out the answer, the better the results. And so this is O1. O1 was the first reasoning model released at the end of last year. And O1 can also reason, and in general, these reasoning AI models can reason about images as well. So they are multimodal also. And the result is incredible because, for example, in this case, they asked analyze this image, and the model is actually understanding what are the parts, making also some interesting engineering consideration. So these models have actually shown to be really powerful. And at the end of last year, OpenAI released also O1 Pro, that is the most advanced, was the most advanced model before O3 came out. And O1 Pro basically was available only with a ChatGPT Pro subscription. That is a very expensive $200 per month subscription. And actually, the results of O1 Pro were already super interesting because it was surpassing literally human PhD level. In the last club, I showed an example where I passed one of my scientific papers. I passed just the abstract. I was a researcher a while ago, and I asked to design a novel algorithm that was in the third or fourth page of the paper, and the model designed exactly the same algorithm. And keep in mind that I did the research not alone, but working with various universities across the globe. So the model is really powerful, but at the end of this year, and then in January, OpenAI released O3. Actually, not the full version of O3, but it was released the O3 mini version. And the O3 actually is very interesting for 2 reasons. Because it has basically higher capabilities. You can see there a score on PhD level science question. So it reaches 87% accuracy. So many times better than a human PhD, essentially. Also compared to O1 that reached 78%. But the most interesting thing is that it consumes much less power. Okay. And O3, the full version, seemed to have surpassed also a general intelligence test that stands for basically that the model is starting to show general intelligence characteristics. This means that the model can adapt dynamically and learn dynamically. This was not possible before because the model basically learns from data, but it seems like that O3 is not only learning from the data that it was given in the training phase, but it's also trying to find novel solutions. So, having said this, O3 is not yet an AGI, an artificial general intelligence, and then when we will reach this level, it will be a very interesting time for humanity, I think. Because basically you will have a model that is as intelligent as a human being, or actually of a let's say of a level of a PhD or more. So now 2025 has been defined the year of the agents, and this is an interview to Sam Altman, the founder and CEO, one of the founders and the CEO of OpenAI, that actually talks about what he thinks agents really are or could be.
How do you think about the definition of agents today, and what is an agent to you, and what is it not?
This is like my off-the-cuff answer. It's not well considered, but something that I can give a long-duration task to and provide minimal supervision during execution for.
What do you think people think about agents that actually they get wrong?
Maybe I can give the following example. When people talk about an AI agent acting on their behalf, the main example that they seem to give fairly consistently is, you can ask the agent to go book you a restaurant reservation. One of the things that I think is interesting is a world where you can just do things that you wouldn't or couldn't do as a human. So what if instead of calling one restaurant to make a reservation, my agent would call me like 300 and figure out which one had the best food for me or some special thing available or whatever. And then you would say, well, that's like really annoying if your agent is calling 300 restaurants. But if it's an agent answering each of those 300 places, then no problem. And it can be this like massively parallel thing that a human can't do. So that's like a trivial example, but there are these like limitations to human bandwidth that maybe these agents won't have. The category I think though is more interesting is not the one that people normally talk about where you have this thing calling restaurants for you. But something that's more like a really smart senior coworker, where you can like collaborate on a project with, and the agent can go do like a 2-day task or 2-week task really well, and ping you when it has questions, but come back to you with like a great work product.
Okay, so I think that the definition of Sam Altman is really interesting because he's referring to agents as senior coworkers that go on a very long duration task and then come back to you with the answer. Now, this is actually interesting because actually AI agents work on a different kind of let's say structure. So just to understand the difference between a normal AI model, a large language model like ChatGPT, GPT-4o, and an agent, is that, so imagine you ask ChatGPT to write a newsletter, it will actually write it from top to bottom straight away without thinking about, let's say, if it's good, if you can improve it. Now, I'm not talking about reasoning AIs, but a reasoning AI like O1 or O3 could actually think more and produce a better result. But with AI agents, what you can do is you can force the process to be recursive. And so you can ask, so you can tell to the agent, hey, write the first version and then critique yourself and then write a better version, right? And imagine if instead of using, again, GPT-4o, that is the, let's say now simpler model from OpenAI, you do this with O3. So basically, in this way, we are already improving the result of these models. And this technique actually allows the agent to be really smart at, again, producing better results. Now, agents actually can use external tools. So O3 is also really good at calling external tools, like, for example, sending an email or doing a research online and then writing a document on Google Docs. So they can do multiple things. And in fact, at the beginning of the year in January, OpenAI released Operator, their first agent. And so Operator is really interesting because, again, it's a first agent from OpenAI, and it really goes on long duration tasks. Okay, it basically takes control of, so it has a separate browser for now only, and it literally goes autonomously on a task. But when it has troubles, it asks you to intervene in the process, sending you a notification. Now, this is really interesting because it opens up a huge number of opportunities. So, for example, I tested Operator to sort my bookmarks. I collect bookmarks of all these news on a Trello list that is a nightmare because I save a lot of links every day. And I said to Operator, hey, please go and look at my Trello board. It's basically a board where I save, again, these links and sort them in categories every day. Okay. So it's like having an assistant working with you. In fact, I did create an account for Operator in my Trello that I gave to him. And I also created a Google account for Operator. Maybe I shouldn't say this because it's not allowed. But so actually, I invited Operator to my Trello board as if it was a senior coworker. To be honest, he did a mess, and Elena here is aware of it. Elena is another one of our team, and but yet I think this is a very interesting use case for having like coworkers already helping you in a cloud web application that you use every day. Now, there are actually already open source alternatives to OpenAI Operator. In fact, these are some of the alternatives. You can find them also on one of my latest LinkedIn posts. I published this list. So the open source world is moving at an incredible speed. So basically, you can now have Operator even if you don't pay $200 per month on working also on your machine without paying for an external large language model. So the second agent that actually was announced a few weeks ago, last month, but now it's available on all paid and free, maybe also, users of ChatGPT, is Deep Research. Deep Research is basically a research agent that goes on a long task and comes back to you with a very big, let's say, research document on the topic that you want to explore. It will also ask you like questions. What do you want to go deeper into? So this is the video of a company, actually a consulting company that is using it, and it came out yesterday, I think.
So you start up with a question and you might not know anything about it. And then you put your researcher's hat on and you're like, let me think about this a bit more. Where can I go look? Well, my name is Reem Anshasi. I am a director in the Research and Data Services Department in Bain, San Francisco. Good research, to me, is being able to deliver the latest data, the most credible data. It's difficult because the research topics have become much more niche. And that's why we continuously innovate to make sure we're capturing all these nuances. I got access to deep research, and what I liked about it is that it really is trying to understand what the requester needs, even down to like, what geographies are you looking at? What industries are you looking at? All these tools can help enhance that. This week, I've been working on the semiconductor chip shortage. I want to understand the underlying reasons and which industries were affected the most and what the outlook will be for the next few years. So I put in a prompt. I asked it to look at industry publications, consulting briefs, publicly available data, as well as data from semiconductor associations. It summed up rather quickly what the underlying causes were and provided some context. And if you hover over the source, you can see that it leads you to a website. It will give me a very holistic view. And I'm excited because I can do it much faster now.
Okay, so just to summarize, this is like having again a coworker. In this case, be aware because probably the senior coworker concept is a bit wrong in this case because there are already a lot of tests proving that deep research is really good at researching some things, but very bad at researching others. So the suggestion is always to be very critical with a report that deep research produces, and probably use it first on the things you know, and then maybe try to move on the things that you know less. But this is valid for all these models, right? We should never take and copy and paste the results directly. Now, there is a huge competition already on this. So also Google has their own deep research, and now also Perplexity, Copilot. So really everyone rushed to this deep research, let's say, wave. An interesting one is from Perplexity, and Perplexity actually is basically a research engine, a search engine, but AI powered, and they released also deep search. Then DeepSeek happened. So DeepSeek is again this Chinese company that released open source actually 2 models. Well, actually it released more models, but the 2 that are very interesting are DeepSeek V3, that is very similar to GPT-4o in terms of performance and a bit better. It's not a reasoning model, so it doesn't reason before answering, but it's open source. So basically, you can have GPT-4o level intelligence on your machine. This is incredible. Because again, this changes a lot of reasoning about economics. And most importantly, this happened as well. So when DeepSeek not V3, but DeepSeek R1 was released, the tech market basically in the US collapsed, or not collapsed, but lost an important, let's say, market share in terms of valuation. So lost a lot of valuation. In specific, Nvidia, that is clearly the most famous and most important company in the world, actually lost 600 billion in terms of valuation when DeepSeek announced R1. So R1 is the reasoning model of DeepSeek. But what is very interesting is that this reasoning model, first of all, is also open source. So we have, after less than 1 month that OpenAI announced O1 Pro, we have a model that performs better, but for free, right? And so everyone is saying, oh my God, this means that these AI companies like OpenAI, Anthropic, and so on are not as valuable as we thought they were. But what I think is very interesting is that is the training method that they used to create DeepSeek R1. This is likely the Sputnik of AI, so Sputnik for satellite, right? Because it's actually using just reinforcement learning. It's not using human feedback. That was instead used on all the previous, let's say, model training phases. So O1, O3, they all used mostly reinforcement learning with human feedback. In this case, it seems like that just reinforcement learning, so just telling the model, just giving the model a way of evaluating his own, let's say, replies during the training phase, generated a very smart model that can reason better than O1. This is incredible because also the, let's say, technique is already on GitHub. So literally you can go and take a normal, let's say, a large language model like Llama 3.2 and transform it into a reasoning AI with this process without a lot of investment, a huge investment in the training phase. So what can happen is that then you can have reasoning models directly on your mobile phones, for example, by using some techniques to reduce also the size of this model. So what if every device in the world could have a very intelligent reasoning model similar to O3 working locally without, let's say, having to go online? So I experienced this in China. Because actually I decided that I didn't want to use well, actually I couldn't use ChatGPT. I could have used the DeepSeek, but I thought, okay, let's try to download the model on my phone and use it. And basically it was like having internet in my pocket without needing to access internet, and also a very smart internet, because it was giving me a lot of very interesting replies. Robotics. So this is actually the main reason we went to China, apart from Sichuan University partnership. And we've seen very incredible things. But let me tell you a bit of the latest news that were announced on robotics this year. So at CES 2025, the largest consumer electronics show in the world, NVIDIA presented Cosmos, their new model, AI model for actually training robots, right? So basically now you can train a robot pretty much as you would train an agent, imagine, right? So these robots are becoming very, let's say, easy to train on specific tasks. Let's see the announcement here.
The next frontier of AI is physical AI. Model performance is directly related to data availability, but physical world data is costly to capture, curate, and label. NVIDIA Cosmos is a world foundation model development platform to advance physical AI. It includes auto-regressive world foundation models, diffusion-based world foundation models, advanced tokenizers, and an NVIDIA CUDA, an AI-accelerated data pipeline. Cosmos models ingest text, image, or video prompts and generate virtual world states as videos. Cosmos generations prioritize the unique requirements of AV and robotics use cases, like real-world environments, lighting, and object permanence. Developers use NVIDIA Omniverse to build physics-based, geospatially accurate scenarios, then output Omniverse renders into Cosmos, which generates photoreal, physically based synthetic data. Whether diverse objects or environments, conditions like weather or time of day, or edge case scenarios. Developers use Cosmos to generate worlds for reinforcement learning AI feedback to improve policy models.
Okay, you can see the video online, but basically the idea behind this is that Cosmos can generate basically infinite variations of the world, so that you can pass it to the model controlling the robot, and the robot can act accordingly, even if it has an let's say an unseen scenario, right? So this is super interesting also because all the tech industry is moving on robotics. I've talked to friends at Google. They were working on Gemini, and now they moved to work on humanoid robotics. But also OpenAI actually announced that they were opening positions for robotics engineers, right? So also OpenAI is famous to have started with robots, but then it actually left the robots aside and it focused on large language models. But now they're going back to robots because now these models are mature enough to control robots, right? And finally, also we went to see a few robotics companies in China. This is a company in Chengdu. This is Davide Bartolucci from Shadow. We were lucky enough to go and visit this company who's working on this humanoid robot. Is still controlled with a controller, but we're working on actually making it more autonomous. So we're literally in the early phases. But also another company that we visited in China is working on a very interesting concept that is a robot that is not humanoid but can perform the tasks of a humanoid robot with just one hand. So again, also another company is working on not a humanoid robot, but a robot that actually is a biped in Italian, that actually is also used as a platform to experiment, and the cost is a bit more than the previous robot. I think it's around $15,000. But check it out what it is. It's called the Tron 1, and they call it the first multimodal biped robot because it can have actually legs so it's basically like a robot dog of the ones that you actually see around, but it's much more portable, much lighter, and you can change the legs and put wheels, and it can go around. It can also do stairs, literally, as you can see here. It's really incredible to see in real life. It's something out of Star Wars, I would say. And of course, what are the usage? I think we will discover it, right? So I think we are like in the phase where people are trying different factors for these robots, and we will understand how to use them, what are they useful for. So in this case, by the way, here we're actually training the robot using Cosmos on various different tasks. You can put a robotic arm on top of the robot, so you can actually start to open things and move things around. And of course, with normal legs, you can go around on a very difficult terrain, like in the mountains, right? So this is, again, when you see this, you think, oh my God, we're like at the Star Wars level already. Then, just to conclude, actually, this robot is really interesting, as I was saying before, because you can program it in Python. It uses, again, NVIDIA, Isaac, part of the Cosmos family, and it's open source the code in perfect Chinese style. So China seems to play the open source game in an incredible way. In fact, by the way, OpenAI and Microsoft are like rethinking a bit their strategy on open source. So just the last robot that we actually didn't see, but I think is super interesting, is that these robots are becoming really good at moving, right? So the movement of this robot is very natural, and it's so natural that people thought this video was AI generated. But it's actually not. So it's like real sources like NVIDIA are saying that this robot is real, and in fact now there are more videos, more shooting of this robot around, and the movement are incredibly natural, right? Again, it's not still fully autonomous, but you can see here like walking around is crazy. Now, what we actually saw is robots helping to do natural movements in China. In a Chinese company that we visited. We were lucky enough with Ricardo to visit this company. This company is focused on rehabilitation, or in general on let's say helping paralyzed patients to still maintain muscles active, right? And in this case, this patient he's paralyzed from the belt down, like he literally was in a wheelchair. And he put on this exoskeleton alone, and this was the result. I filmed this. I was there, and it was very moving actually to see it. Still a bit of I have a bit of goosebumps because the movements were so natural that it seemed like he was actually working. And this company actually is producing more advanced exoskeleton. In the future, it will be also possible to not to use stemples, how do you say it? Like brackets, stemples. I don't know, like stampelle in Italian. And again, the price point of this is still a bit high, but it's going down, and he uses it basically every day in addition to physiotherapy to maintain muscle activity, even if he's completely paralyzed. And of course, he improved a lot of movements. He has less pain in general, and so on. So, just to conclude, we're launching our newsletter. So since many of you actually have asked me have asked us where actually we get the news. The answer is very complex because we have a team that actually is really sharing Instagram posts, TikTok reels, LinkedIn news that we find around. But we decided that we should try to launch a newsletter. So we will try to keep it daily with maximum free tools that are interesting and true news that we find also interesting. And you can subscribe to the newsletter here today. Please send us feedback, what you would like to see next. You just hit reply and we'll read it. It's free. We hope it's going to be interesting and useful for you. Share it with whoever you want. Again, we do this club just for helping the ecosystem of H-Farm to know more about AI. Thank you again. Bye.
That's a wrap for this episode of AI Beyond the Hype. If you found it insightful, make sure to subscribe.